Isn't this what we're all trying to figure out here on draft day, just a couple of hours from the NFL draft that is orange and blue today? And what does Sean Payton want? He wants the truth, Andrew Mason.
He wants the truth. I think all of us want to know what the Broncos are going to do. It's like Christmas. You wait to unwrap those presents. They're sitting under the tree, but you don't know for a couple of years whether you got the gift that you wanted, the perfect gift. Like, what did you want last Christmas? You want an iPad, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Or I should say Apple gift cards to get her to an iPad.
Yes, right.
iPhone.
Or what?
iPhone.
Yeah, now you want a phone. You have an iPad, now you want an
I'm old
iPhone.
enough for a phone.
It's in discussion.
That
It's
is
in
a discussion.
negotiation.
That is a debate for sure. It definitely is. Charlotte is part of the show. We're talking about what the Broncos want to do in this draft. Well, Mace, it depends on what other teams want to do. So let's start with some rumors, shall we? And I'm writing this up at denversports.com. You've already been able to read it. It comes out on Thursday morning, along with my one and only mock draft, which I did not do any trades in. I never do trades, but we know trades are going to happen, Mace.
Yes.
But here's what I think. I think the first 3 picks are chalk. I think it's Caleb. I think it's Jaden. I think it's Drake May. Those are chalk picks. 4 is where things get interesting. So at 4, is Marvin Harrison the best receiver in this class? It's debatable. In January, people started saying how Marvin Harrison would not be, or it was not the best. Maybe Rome Odunze was better. Maybe Malik Neighbors was better. I know the Giants want Neighbors at 6. 5 is going to be a tackle, likely Joe Alt. But 4, this is where Minnesota could move up and ruin the J.J. McCarthy dream.
Yes, and because 4 is probably going to be a bridge too far for the Broncos in terms of what they're willing to offer, because 3 first-round picks, in other words, number 12 this year, and then your 25 first round and your 26 first round aren't going to be enough to make the deal happen. This is where the rumors regarding Pat Surtain are started to percolate on Wednesday. But
was it Diana Rossini who had that?
Rossini had that
yes.
From The Athletic, formerly of ESPN.
Yeah.
I put it out there on social media, kind of in a response to that. But what I know from the Broncos end is this: trading Pat Surtain, that is a desperate last resort. Like, that is not something they want to do. I always say focus on what they do, not what they say. What did they do this week when they had the big new uniform reveal? Who was out front? They have Pat Surtain for both. Like, there's the graphic of all 9 uniforms in the new closet, as the Broncos call it. Pat Surtain out front, wearing, I believe, orange over white, I believe is the one that he has, which I think is going to end up being the base home uniform over time. And then they do the big video to tease the throwback uniforms, and it's Surtain who's the star of that, with Randy Gradishar going into the Hall of Fame this summer, handing Pat Surtain the classic Orange Crush jersey. I mean, that's a passing of the torch right there. Like, I don't think you'd be seeing this sort of imagery from the Broncos if they had any intention of trading Pat Surtain. It's not something they want to do, and ultimately I think they will emerge from the draft with Pat Surtain on their roster. By the way, picking up the 5th-year option yet on Tuesday, that doesn't make a difference because that doesn't make a difference at all, because any team that got Pat Surtain in a trade would certainly pick up that option in lieu of a longer-term contract until they could get it done. But focus on what the Broncos organization did, and not what other people are saying. What they did was they made Pat Surtain the centerpiece of their first new look in 27 years. I think he'll be around.
Yeah, and I would guess Surtain's probably the top jersey seller of the new jerseys for the Broncos. Doesn't mean they wouldn't trade him. If Sean Payton wants JJ and that trading Surtain is the way to get JJ, then they'll get JJ. I feel confident in that. You have Rossini saying that Surtain, they could pull a big trade and an epic move. You have Tom Pelissero saying, as we mentioned yesterday, like, oh, the Broncos are more likely to move back. Okay, George and Sean, who wins out? It's Sean. If Sean says get the guy, they'll get the guy. If that means getting rid of Surtain, even with the Ford Bronco commercial, I mean the throwback jersey commercial. I swear to God, it was like, is this a Bronco commercial or is this Ford or is this Denver? Anyway, it'll include Surtain. But that's the thing, is for too much with what Minnesota can give up with their 2 first-rounders for this year.
Yeah. Again, like I said, not something they want to do.
Right.
And it's, but I would say the chances of having Surtain included in the deal are minimal, really low percentage. I mean, 3%, 4%,
2%.
Yeah.
It's not very high.
4% means it's it's basically 24, 4 divided by 4 divided in 100 is 25. So it basically is 25 to 1, right? So
yeah.
As Charlotte returns, she's got her Christmas gift. Or that's her. There's her iPad.
All right, there you go. There's the iPad. Got stickers on it like Dad too.
Yes. All the cool kids have stickers on it.
All right.
Even the cool adults.
There you go. If we look past that, 5 will be Joe Alt, 6 will be Malik Neighbors. If Marvin Harrison is gone, the Giants are in an interesting spot. They're not going to take a quarterback there, although they might move back into the first for Bo Nix. 6 is an interesting spot because it's like, okay, that's going to be a wide receiver. And then 7 is up for grabs. I think 7 is either a surprise tackle because a lot of people are putting Joe Alt to the Titans. Well, Alt will go to the Chargers. And then it might be a surprise tackle for Tennessee, or they could move back. And this is why if Minnesota doesn't move for 4, moving for 7, getting on the phone with Rand Carthon, that is a priority for the Broncos because the 12 to 7 jump, Mace, that's not a lot.
12 to 7 jump, you might be able to do that for the cost of the first round pick next year.
Right.
To go from 12. So you obviously surrender number 12. I think you'd surrender next year's first round pick. And that's actually doable.
If you're Tennessee, who's going to be higher in the draft order? Sean Payton told us at the pre-draft press conference, 4 is a lot different from 24. And if you're Tennessee, you can bank on the 25 first rounder for Denver being higher than the 25 first rounder for Minnesota, although Minnesota would probably just give you the 2 this year.
Yeah, you can. So you get the immediate hit right away. Although Minnesota's in an interesting spot because, they might have a tough season coming up here. So they, you look at their environment right now. Detroit shouldn't be going anywhere. Green Bay should be better. That the Green Bay at the end of the season is the Green Bay you're going to probably see from the start of the year this year. That Green Bay team can win 12 games. That Detroit team can win 11 or 12 games again. Honestly, it's weird. I would actually consider the Minnesota 2025 pick potentially an attractive piece. I think the Vikings may play some really fun, high-scoring games. I'm not sure they're going to stop anybody. Chicago will be better. That's actually an interesting thing. Who has the higher pick next year, Minnesota or Denver?
Right.
I think there's a chance it's Minnesota. I think there's a real good chance, actually, it's Minnesota. That Denver, no matter what happens this year, that Denver ends up with – I can see Denver ending up with 8 wins again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or a slight step back.
7 or 8 wins. And actually, they might be a slight step back in terms of team quality, but because in interdivisional play, they're paired against – or interconference play, they're paired against the NFC South. Now they're also paired against the AFC North, so that's going to be a challenge. But they're paired against the NFC South. I think there's the opportunity for the Broncos to pick up, say, 3 wins against that division. I could see them beating Atlanta at home, beating Atlanta at home, beating Carolina at home, and stealing one from New Orleans in the Superdome. I think they'll lose at Tampa Bay. So you start looking at that. You look at the Raiders, whatever they're doing. You can start seeing a path to 7 or 8 wins for the Broncos, which maybe ends up being a little bit more than the Vikings get. Is what I'm saying. So
we got to see how the
draft. Really long-winded way of saying that I think the Broncos may be picking after the Vikings next year.
We got to see how the draft takes a turn this year, who goes off the board. But I know this, both Indianapolis and Jacksonville want the same guy. They both want to move up in this draft. And Jacksonville and Indy are picking up the phone to talk to top 10 teams for a wide receiver, for Malik Neighbors specifically. But Rome Odunze, who's no slouch whatsoever, I could easily make the argument he's the best in this class. Even though I love Neighbors, and obviously I have a great appreciation for Marvin Harrison Jr. So you have teams behind you. You have the Raiders directly behind you trying to get Michael Penix, most likely. Penix will go in the first round, okay? I don't think that should be a mystery anymore. And then if Jacksonville and Indy, you've got teams trying to beat you already to those picks, 2-7, 2-8 with Atlanta, although Atlanta seems focused on Dallas Turner. You've got a lot of things going on in relatively a brief amount of time, but the intel should be out there. The Broncos should know this. Hell, Mace, they probably know more than I know, but I know Indy and Jacksonville are both trying to move up for a wide receiver.
But do you know who's bluffing? Do you know who's lying? That's the other thing.
I don't think either one of those are lying. If they're lying, I would tell you. Like, I questioned the Drake May thing with New England, but I've had people around that team tell me for sure it's going to be Drake May. So, okay, I'll stick with it. It wasn't that case in January. But Jacksonville and Indy are not bluffing. They want to move up. And if you're Denver, that's why you sitting at 12 or moving back. It's a dangerous game, provided that you need a quarterback, whether it's Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, whoever.
Yeah. I actually don't like it for Drake May going into New England, to be honest with you. I think they're better.
He can learn behind Jacoby. He can learn behind Jacoby.
They got to be patient.
How that works out. Right. Nix, you can play right now. We talked about that yesterday. Like, Nix, you can play right now. Drake needs a year. Honestly, JJ could use a little more seasoning, but he might be in a situation, if it's Denver, where you move up and then he's your guy, right? Minnesota's different for JJ. He could sit behind Darnold for some time.
So you don't believe the rumors this week that Drake May could be the guy that falls. You don't see that happening.
No. That physical talent is too much, provided that you're set up the right way for him. I don't think there's any sort of like Will Levis fall. These are different caliber quarterbacks. You mentioned yesterday, like every draft is different. Yeah. So when people say, it's like Will Levis or whatever, it's like, no, Will Levis couldn't hold a candle to what Drake May can do physically. I am concerned about May's hero mentality and just, he's not the alpha, maybe to the media that I want him to be. Doesn't mean anything. Mark Sanchez was great with the media, couldn't play. There you go.
I think there's the stuff like the alpha, kind of that presence. I think that's a reminder Drake May is pretty young. I think he's going to grow into that. I think he has the capability to grow into that.
And what do his teammates think? I mean, Eli Manning was that same sort of aw shucks type of stuff. And Eli was pretty damn good.
And the Ole Miss teammates loved him, respected him. He was a leader there. Same thing with Drake May at North Carolina. In that environment, the teammates loved and respected him. So I think that's just something that's going to come as he hits 24, 25 years old and, continues his growth process and his maturation, that I think he'll mature into someone who can lead an entire team of, grown men, basically. I would say this, I would feel better about Drake May's long-term prospects if he were going to Minnesota or Denver, because I think the coaching he would get is going to be better in those places. See, one thing that will factor into the success or failure of these quarterbacks is the environment and the coaching. That's where I think whoever Minnesota and Denver get are going to have an advantage. I think those are the top two among these five. And I'd say probably Washington with Cliff Kingsbury right there at 3. But Minnesota, Denver, Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton. Of these top 5, those 2 are the places you want to be. By the way, the Raiders getting into the mix. You know who the Raiders have on their staff?
Who do the Raiders have on their staff?
Rich Scangarello.
Ah, there we go, Rich. Good. Happy for him.
Old friend Rich Scangarello. I'm happy for him. He's working under Luke Getsy. Rich Scangarello is the quarterback coach. Luke Getsy, of course, who had been in Green Bay and then was in Chicago and then was let go, the offensive coordinator. So I'm going to say I'm not sure about that coaching. I mean, you mentioned the name Will Levis. Will Levis, Rich Scangarello at the University of Kentucky. That didn't work out. Levis' stock dropped in the 2022 season. Scangarello, 1 year, fired by UK. So, again, another example of a situation where I don't necessarily believe there is the right setup compared to what Minnesota and Denver have. You and I talked about Denver in particular. You have Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi, Pete Carmichael coming in, and Davis Webb. And Davis Webb, by the way, a young guy, was playing as recently as 2022. He's the guy who can kind of connect with these young quarterbacks. And every quarterback you ask about when you say, hey, what do you think of Davis Webb? They rave about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a rising star in this profession. But the point is, you got 4 coaches there that are focused on the offense, the passing game, the quarterback. Whoever comes in is going to be able to get a lot of individualized instruction. So
right.
That and you have 3 coaches with a lot of experience, and then you have Davis Webb, who kind of brings that recent player perspective. Can kind of maybe take a little bit of the edge off because Sean Payton's going to come in hot. We know that. And so you're going to have to handle tough coaching, tough criticism. That was one of the reasons why the Broncos were doing all the meetings they did. You're trying to find out in these players whether they can handle being critiqued at a high level, because it's going to be on an everyday basis. You're going to be going into the fire when you sit down in that film room. And Payton is dissecting everything you did. I mean, the whole thing when Michael Penix Jr. walked in and they showed his lowlights and they asked him, hey, what were you thinking on this? Whoever the quarterback is has to get used to that and has to be able to shake it off and grow from that. So it's not just about the ability. It's about the resilience. It's about, are you a sponge, or do you have a steel armor? Basically, are things going to bounce off you and you're going to keep going? Or are you going to absorb it all and let it get into your psyche? That's a big question.
Yeah, that's what makes Bo Nix an attractive prospect, and what makes JJ McCarthy an attractive prospect, because you're not hearing concerns about maturity or coachability. And before people's go on and like, it's Sean Payton and his ego. This is so common. Gary Kubiak was the buffer, right? Mike Shanahan was the buffer. Like, you have to have that buffer between head coach and quarterback, and at various times. And it's funny how that Sean Payton one day was likely a buffer, right? Because you have to be the guy that's like, I know that guy was kind of angry, but hey, I get you. I understand you. It's connecting. Davis Webb does that.
That was kind of his role with the New York Giants with Kerry Collins back in the late 90s, early 2000s, 99, 2000 seasons. You've got, Davis Webb and Pete Carmichael are going to be those buffer roles. Both of them. Pete Carmichael in particular, I think that's going to be an underrated get, because you mentioned the Kubiak Mike Shanahan dynamic, and I think there's something to it there with Pete Carmichael and Sean Payton, that he's going to be the guy who's kind of going to say okay, that's what Sean said, what can we take from this? Don't take it personally, and we'll actually listen, and then he'll relay that information back to Sean Payton as well.
Right.
That's the way these things work. It is a little bit of a good cop, bad cop thing. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, but that's worked. I mean, that's worked in multiple sports. Sometimes the good cop is the head coach and the bad cop is the assistant. Sometimes it's vice versa. I mean, I look back on the Broncos in the 2000s. A profound thing that happened, and maybe it changed the direction for the worse for a while, was when Gary Kubiak left to go be the head coach of the Houston Texans. The late Mike Heimerdinger came in. Dinger, brilliant coach, no doubt. But the thing with him was he came in hot, the way Mike would come in hot.
Right.
He lost the buffer. And it didn't work for Jake Plummer, for example, not having Coops there and having Dinger there. And that was part of the reasons why things kind of came apart over those couple of years before Dinger moved back on and back into the coordinator play call ranks elsewhere before he passed away.
Go along to get along, and that's what the Broncos will do with all their people that can get on these quarterbacks. It's like, okay, find your guy. So as we wrap up with an hour or so left to go before the draft, Mace.
Yep.
Bold prediction time. I still think they move up for JJ. But bold prediction time. And the great thing about this is, because you mentioned teams bluffing.
Yeah.
When you're on the clock, you can't bluff. The bluffing's over. Like Indy's trying to move up, Jacksonville's trying to move up. New England will take Drake May. Well, when you're on the clock, all the time for this is over. Make a move.
Uh-huh.
I think they're moving up for JJ. What do you think?
I'd like to think they're going to be like George and Wheezy Jefferson and move on up to a. So we're calling JJ McCarthy the deluxe apartment in the sky.
In the sky.
I just like singing that song. It might be the greatest
Great
TV
song.
song ever.
Yeah.
Yes, Charlotte.
No.
Charlotte said no. Dad, no.
The greatest moment in Orange and Blue Today history.
What? I can't sing.
You really
Hang
can.
on. Say that again.
He really can't. He's a bad singer.
This is
Yeah.
my child here.
Uh,
I'm 11.
Yeah, your child.
I'm a tween.
Tween.
the tween. Okay.
Ugh.
You think it's
Yes.
Bo Nix at 12 then?
I think it's moving down and sitting with tight sphincters waiting to see if Bonix falls to them.
Aren't you excited for me to be a teenager?
Excited for you to be a teenager?
Yeah.
Not really, no. But that's coming. That is only that's not even 14 months away.
Really?
Yeah, because you're 11 and 10 months plus, or 9 months plus. Yeah. Yep. There you go. It's gonna happen soon. Don't wish
I'm gonna
time.
be 12 soon.
Yeah. Don't wish time away. Enjoy the moment.
I know.
There you go. That's that. Okay. See, she learned well in that regard.
Wisdom. I know.
Yes.
I know. Well, we
It's
know
probably
you're
sick-
excited.
The I know is probably, Dad, I'm sick of hearing that. I get it.
Exactly.
Well, people are sick and tired of hearing about a quarterback, so let's flipping go Broncos.
Yes.
Mace, how do they help us out on YouTube?
Like,
Comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell.
so that you
Never
never miss a vid. That's right. See, I did my eyes closed like Michael Jordan shooting free throws on Dikembe. Anyway, he's Mace, I'm Cecil. Let's flip and go Broncos. OBT is a BFD. Make sure to stay tuned for our post-draft Thursday night, probably around midnight,
Oh,
11:30, something like that.
OBT really after dark.
Yes, OBT. What are we
Oh.
doing awake? You're like, yeah, that's what it'll be.
OBT in the shadows.
That's right. Meet me in the
Yes.
shadows. He's Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey. OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.